So another Patreon Q&A. Thank you again, Patreon, so much for your support. If you are not a Patreon, consider joining us on Patreon. Monthly Q&As, all sorts of patching techniques and videos, walkthrough videos, presets for VCVREC, the Discord channel where we have also monthly challenges. Every month there is a new challenge. With giveaways, also with prizes. It's not a competition. I choose a winner randomly, as we will see in a second. So the challenge last month was 3 instruments that you would like to use, 3 modules, 3 synthesizers, 3 VSTs. Create something. Again, this is not a competition. The winner will be chosen at random. We had 13 people submitted something, which is amazing. Really, really cool. I hope I didn't forget anyone. So again, if you are a Patreon, come join us on Discord. If you are not a Patreon, consider joining us on Patreon and on Discord as well. Fun community, really great community. I'm really thankful for this community. So thank you, Patreons. And let's do this. So I have here a best generator that will generate 16 steps, 16 triggers, and I have here a sequencer that is set to 13 steps, again, 1 for each submission, right? And it will land on 1 step randomly. This sequencer is running at random or randomly. And that's it. The chosen step will be our winner. So let's see. This is the challenge. Let's have a look. Puff. And step number 9. Step number 9. This is Michael Parker. You are the winner. Let's see if I'm not mistaken. 9. Yes, 9. Michael Parker, you are the winner of this giveaway. I will contact you on Discord as soon as I finish recording this video. So again, Patreons, come join us on Discord. If you are not a Patreon, come join us on Patreon. It's fun. Okay, let's start with the first question. We have many questions this time. It's going to be a long video. All right. Big Isle, howdy Omri, hi. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, man. I was wondering if you might be interested in making a Supercell versus Microcosm video. Supercell is one of my favorite modules, and I really want to buy a Microcosm. But they are pretty expensive. I'd like to see a breakdown of what they have in common, what each can do that the other can't, etc. Cheers. Cheers, man. So yes, this is a great idea for a whole video, of course. There are many things to show, but I have here, ta-da, I have here the Microcosm next to me. This is live. I have here the Microcosm next to me, and I have here Supercell. I hope you can see. Maybe I can zoom in once more so you can see everything. Right, I have here also Supercell, and I thought just a few of the major differences just to give you an idea. And of course, this is, I can do a whole video about this thing, but just to give you a few things to think about. First of all, I don't know if you want to continue using VCVREC or you are speaking about eurorack, you want Supercell in eurorack or Microcell in eurorack. I have Microcell in hardware, I love it. It's smaller than Supercell, it doesn't have the attenuverters, but it's more or less the same as Supercell, just small. I really like it. So first of all, again, I don't know if it's VCV or eurorack, but let's say that it's eurorack, or even VCV, never mind. Supercell is a module, right? You can put in your case, and it has CV inputs. Microcosm is a pedal. Right? It's not, you cannot put it in your rack, which means that it will take space on your desk. It means that you need to run cables to and from it, right? And it's a pedal basically, so it has also no CV inputs. That said, I did make a video about using the Microcosm pedal with VCVREC because it has Midi and you can modulate things with Midi from VCVREC. Quite fun. I will put a link in the description if I remember. Maybe I will write it down. Link in the description to this video, Microcosm. Right, where you can use it with VCVREC and modulate things, but still this is a pedal, and Microcosm and Supercell or Microcell are modules that you can put in your rack and they have CV inputs, which is the whole fun of modular, I think. Someone is working here and making noise. Anyway, so again, this is the first big thing. This next one, another big difference is that Microcosm is a looper first and foremost. You can loop it, right? With Supercell, you can also sort of loop, but not really. So here I have an example. I have here Janso from Felt Instruments, right? It's going once to Supercell. So I can play it, and once to Microcosm. Right, and with Microcosm, again, I have to move a bit. With Microcosm, again, you can loop, right? So I can go into the looper, and I can start looping. Right? I'm not doing anything. This is coming from the loop. Right? You can play it in reverse. Then you can overdub. Right? And then you can apply all of the different effects here. Before we get into this, I wanted just to show that first of all, this is a looper. Let me turn the loop down, right? So with Microcosm, I'm going to mistake Microcosm and Microcell. Microcosm is a looper, right? First and foremost, it's a looper. With Supercell, you cannot really loop. I mean, you can, right? You can go, for example, to the looping delay, right? And you set the size, for example, all the way up, and you play something, and you hold it, right? And it will loop it, basically, right? If you add some feedback, and then maybe you can... Right, so you can sort of loop. You can also, in this case of the Supercell, you can scan through the loop, which is also quite cool. So if I take the size down, right, and the whole fun is to do this also with CV, right? So Supercell again is a module, eurorack module, with CV inputs. Microcosm is not. So Microcosm is more of a looper also. Supercell is more of a processor. Right, now let's go back to this loop we recorded, right? Of course, I can pitch it up and down, play it half speed or double speed and stuff like this. But now I can also start applying, right, the effects, basically. Right, this is one of the effects. This is the micro loop mosaic. It has also for each algorithm, or for each effect, it has also 4 algorithms, which is quite nice. I mean, the thing is with Microcosm, it makes everything sounds beautiful. Sometimes, in my opinion, it sounds the same beautiful, but it's still beautiful. I mean, it's still amazing. But again, it's not a module, it's a pedal. This is something you have to remember. Right, and you have many different things you can try here. For example, if we go... right, something like glitch. Right, more of a glitchy thing. Also granular. Oh. Right. But again, this is sort of a set and forget, sort of, not really, sort of, set and forget sort of a thing. With Supercell, you can modulate everything, right? Let's talk, you know what, let's first of all, let me show you the Supercell. Right, so again, also here I can create really interesting textures. Right, and again, all of this is CV controllable, so it's quite fun. Let's talk for a second about the reverb, right? So let's go back to Microcosm here. Right, now the reverb on Microcosm, as far as I know it, as far as I understood it, will not affect the dry signal, right? So now I have it all the way dry, and I take the reverb up. There is no reverb, right? If I do the same on Supercell, right, mix all the way down, such the dry signal, but I can add reverb to it, which is a plus, I guess, because then you get another reverb. Also, if you don't want to use all of the different aspects of this module, right? But again, with Microcosm, it will not work. And another thing about the reverb, that the reverb comes before the filter. So the filter, there is a built-in filter here that is the last in the chain, as far as I understood it. Right, so let's say now I add reverb to this. Right, and I start closing the filter. It will also close the filter for the reverb, basically. Right? So also the reverb becomes dark and there are no reverb tails. Just it closes everything, right? Which is, I think, is a bit of a shame, actually, because the whole fun with the filter, when it's before the reverb, that you can create all sorts of motions and movements and gestures and let the reverb sort of be your guide, right? So with a Supercell, for example, pitch shifter and looping delay, there is a built-in filter. This is the shape control, right? Let's see. Right? If now I add reverb and I start closing the filter here to the left, with the shape, to the left is low pass, to the right is high pass. Right, it comes before the filter. So I can do this, reverb tail. Right? Right, so it looks like a small thing, but for me, it's a big thing having the filter before the reverb. Again, it's not a deal breaker or anything, but just something to acknowledge. There are other differences, I guess. There are more modes. There are more modes on the Microcosm. Again, it sort of makes everything sounds beautiful. Sometimes it's the same beautiful, at least in my opinion, but still it makes everything sounds beautiful. It's like, it feels a bit like cheating, like black magic. Right, and also you don't, you don't need it, right? It doesn't have to be a looper, right? You can also use it. You can also use it live, just as a processor. You don't have to use it as a looper, right? If we go back to this here that I really like. It just makes everything sounds beautiful. I mean, it's cheating, basically. Right. This is more or less it. So those are the major points, I guess, that are worth mentioning. What I will do for a second before I delete it, I will just record a loop here, just so maybe later during the questions we have something to play. Right, so let's do something like this. Right, So this maybe we will use later. All right. So this was the first question. I hope this was helpful. Again, this is a subject for a whole video. I can do a whole video about the microcosm versus supercell or microcell. I have microcell in hardware. Maybe that's a good comparison with the hardware microcell. Yes, I think we can remove, no, let's move it here. I don't want to remove this for now. Okay, let's move it here. Let's continue with the second question. So I think, again, Bigal, thank you. Okay, a Schluckchen of a tea. Verdagen, I guess. Hey Omri, hi. Thank you so much for all the content you share with us. Thank you, I appreciate it. I am producing drum and bass usually in a DAW, but I'm trying to make interesting bass lines inside VCV. Could you show us how would you approach making dark Neuro bass inside VCV rack? Wide, lots of distortion, filtering, and movement, but not many notes to keep it as dark as possible. I try to use Nuzoid VCF to get interesting movements by morphing between low pass, high pass, and band pass, which is interesting. I don't have this collection, but it sounds interesting. But I haven't had much success. The goal would be to make sampling material to rearrange inside the DAW. Cheers. Okay, so first of all, disclaimer. I have no experience with this type of music. I don't listen to this type of music. I never tried to create anything like this, really. So this was the first time. I need a few more weeks for something to be at least listenable, but I created something. I did create something that you can maybe take inspiration from for using different modules. So I saved it as a selection, and this selection will be available on Patreon if you want to download it. I will publish it on Patreon so you can download it and have a look. Let me just reset things here. Right, so the modules I used, I thought directly when you said distortion and heavy stuff and things like this, I thought directly about the combination of Detour from Hora and Vakumba from Hora, right? Detour is it's all free modules, right? You don't need the commercial collection for this. This is also available for free. Basically, it's a vector synthesizer sort of. Detour and Vakumba is distortion and overdrive. So the combination between them I directly thought about. Right, there is movement here from an LFO. I will let you listen to this in a second. I'm combining noise, right? I send the red noise. Someone is working here making noise also by himself. I should sample it. Right, himself or herself. Anyway, red noise to the FM, mixing, right? Pink noise, mixing, modulation, which is going to a filter. Again, lots of noise. When you inject noise in all sorts of places like FM for pitch, FM for filter, right? Filter is also FM frequency modulation. Right, you get all sorts of interesting results. Then I will take the delay down for a second. We will see what the delay is doing in a second. This is going to disjoint. Disjoint is also from Volt. It's a DJ style filter, so to the left low pass, to the right high pass, which means that you can create this movement. I'm using a sequencer for this, the ADDR sequencer, just to create this movement. Right, this is going to punch, first of all, to add some more crunch to the sound, but also if you want to use an envelope, I have here also an envelope. Again, this is saved in the collection, so you can just connect it to a punch, which is a VCA, and then you can control it with an envelope. I didn't, I used the sequencer to sequence the filter, and to sequence a Detour itself, and to sequence an LFO also. You see there is movement here. So if I connect this, right, this is basically this almost all of the sound. Right. If I get rid of the LFO, for example, right, you have all sorts of sweet spots here with this synthesizer, which is quite cool. Right, so lots of distortion, really gritty sound. Right, again, the noise adding everywhere if I take it out. Right, so really important to add noise. Again, try this combination of Detour and Vakumba, and the delay. What I'm doing with the delay here is I'm adding width to the sound. It's a short delay, stereo short delay, and I have the right channel a bit offset from the left, right? So if I add this, directly it goes stereo again without, and with, just to add some width. You can add also a phaser, for example, somewhere there in the chain, or a flanger or something like this. Right, and again, the sequence is basically adding this rhythmic movement. Right, and together with sort of simple bass and drum and bass pattern. Again, this is not my world. This is not, I don't have any experience with this. And here I did use the commercial VCV drums. So for the drums, you will need a commercial collection. But for the bass sound, if you want to call it a bass sound, you don't need any commercial collection. So let's listen to this. Right, again. Again, this is not nearly a final result, right? But this is something you can experiment with. Again, I'm sorry, but this is not, I don't have any experience with this. And so this is more or less the first time I tried. If I had a few more weeks to do this, then maybe I would come up with something better. But again, this is an idea that you can use. I think that the sequencing maybe are too much. If you want to sample it, maybe you can just sample the voice and right, and just do all the other stuff in the DAW. Yeah, but this is more or less it. Again, this is just the sound. Right, you can play with the filter, more distortion. Right, so I think it's just the basis of what you can do with this. Again, this selection will be available on Patreon if you want to download it and take a closer look. I hope this was a bit helpful. Again, I'm sorry, but this is not really my area. Drum and bass and stuff like this, sounds like this, although this can be used in all sorts of different genres, and I should experiment more, but there is just not enough time in a day, unfortunately. But I hope this was somewhat helpful. Please let me know if this was helpful. Again, selection on Patreon. Another look. All right, the next question from, I don't know if it's Fick or if it's Pick, but thank you. Hello, I'm a big Skee Mask fan and would love some of your input on his pattern programming and sound design. Really nice. Listen to it. Really interesting, fun music. I will put a link to this video you shared in the description. And also here I created something. Actually, it's more of a patch than a selection, but I saved it as a selection so you can also download it. Skee Mask. Also download it. Right, and use it. Again, I will just reset something here, everything here. Right, so you can download the selection, will be available on Patreon and have a closer look. Let's go voice by voice. I will just mute here things, right? So we'll go voice by voice and I will show you more or less what I did. In overall, in general, I think the sound, there are a lot of little things, small things happening all the time. Lots of small modulation. Right? Nothing too big, nothing too grandiose. Everything is like small, but lots of small things, lots of ear candy, right? And lots of random modulation, rhythmic random modulation. I'm pretty sure he's working in Ableton. I saw an interview with him. Right, really experimental in the way that he's using things, but the results are really lots of small things, lots of small sounds. Everything is subtle, but together, lots of ear candy. Everything is moving everywhere, right? So what I did here, first of all, the first sound, let me connect this. Again, this is more of a full-blown patch, but I hope it's okay. Right, so first of all, I have here the gate sequencer. I have 4 patterns saved, and if you can see here, they are moving randomly. So what was it? Jumping to 3, then jumping to 4, right? 1, Basically, the 4 patterns are moving randomly. This you can do in the mode here. You see mode, I have it on random, right? So those are the patterns that are sequencing, I think, just 2 voices that we will see in a second, right? So the first one is this sort of a snare. Again, it's not a snare, it's a small snare, it's noise, but together with everything else, it sounds quite interesting. So the noise itself, the snare itself is noise, right? White noise going to a band pass filter, lots of resonance, as you can see. And again, modulation, every modulation for the drive with sample and hold. I'm using the super sample and hold. Modulation for the drive for sort of velocity. Sometimes the snare will be softer, sometimes it will have more weight. Right, and also modulation for the envelope. Right, again, just a small sound, but it has an impact. It has this interesting sound to it, right? Noise, basically perfect. Another one, sort of glitches. Right, so I'm sending this snare to another bandpass filter, modulating it with sample and hold. This is going to Chronoblob 2, and I have a video about it I released maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago about how you can make this glitchy sound with the Chronoblob. Basically, I used chances here to output gates, right? It will freeze the delay, as you can see here, and at the same time, it will also bring the wet all the way up, right? So the wet will go 100% only when it's frozen. Modulation for the, again, for the bandpass filter, modulation for the delay time, and you get this glitchy sound. Modulation for the panning, also really important. Things are moving always everywhere. Right, and you can hear the pattern that I have here for the snare is not so full, but with everything else it will sound enough, basically. Right, the next voice I have here is actually a stereo voice. Let me solo this. More noise. Going through another filter, this time is the liquid filter from YouTube Instruments. I used only free available modules, right? So everything is for free, you can download it. Again, selection available on Patreon. Right, I have noise, red noise, modulating or going to the resonance input, again, just to create more texture. Noise is amazing for textures. Right, random modulation for the FM of the filter. Again, modulation for the envelope. Look at the envelope, how it's moving, right? Random modulation. Again, modulating the panning. And here what I'm doing, I have plateau. You can hear the reverb, right? I'm modulating the wet, and I'm also clearing the buffer randomly with 2 chances. Right, and one chance is opening an envelope that opens the wet, right? So sometimes there is reverb, sometimes not. Let's listen to this a bit. Right, again, lots of small things and lots of modulation, rhythmic, 16th notes modulation or rhythmic modulation. You can also use a sequencer for this. Right, mostly random, also things are always moving together with the snare. Right, this style of music really reminds me of the music of JW, the developer for VCV, also makes music. Really lots of small things, everything is moving, lots of modulation, random modulation, really interesting stuff. Right, another voice I have here, a bass drum coming from Tremor 2. Again, random modulation for the decay. It's a small kick drum, right? There's nothing big about it, right? But it's there to give more rhythms. This is the second channel here from the gate sequencer. Right, lots of ear candy, everything is moving around, but small sounds, small movements. This is at least the feeling I got. The next one is the bass. Now the bass, I needed a few more days or a couple of weeks to work on it because it's not perfect. It doesn't really sound the same, but it's more or less a direction that you can explore. Again, sequencer running randomly. So random notes. I have here random slew limiting, right? So some steps will be with slew, some steps without. I'm pretty sure is using in this track you sent me in this video is using a 303 sort of bass. So I used the nitrous filter from Volt. Right, just to get this feel. And again, movement in the envelope. And I have here another using also a sine wave, right, just to add more weight to the space, without, with, right? So again, this bass needs more work, but basically more or less the feeling, again, random, small random things, lots of noises, lots of stuff. Right, and another voice, more glitch. This is also something I saw that is doing, is taking samples, chopping them and playing them rhythmically in different ways. So here I have a drum sample basically. Right, playing a few octaves up. Right, again going through a bandpass filter, again this trick with the delay. Right? Lots of glitches, lots of funny sounds. Right, and the last voice, I didn't have space here in the mixer, but I will connect it to the main mixer. Basically sort of something harmonic, right? There are some sorts of melodies, small changes. Right, in this track you sent me, a sort of a harmony there that is not really in your face, but everything together comes to some sort of a track, right? So again, also this, I should have worked more on this, but I just didn't have enough time. I need a few more days or weeks to get something a bit more interesting. But basically chords, going to the FM operator and lots of reverb. Right, just to have this harmonic element. Right. So again, all sorts of small noises, everything is moving. Also this selection will be available on Patreon if you want to download it. Right, so you can have a look exactly what's going on. I hope this was a bit helpful. Again, this is a subject for a whole video that I can do just on this, but I hope this was helpful. Thank you again for the question. Okay, Giovanni. Hi, Omri, and thanks once again for gathering together this interesting community. Thank you, man. You're a part of it. You make it interesting. Thank you. Let's imagine that you have to live for 6 months to a desert island with power supplies. And due to travel restrictions, you can bring with you only a eurorack case, 1 row, 3U, and 64 HP wide. Which of the modules you own would you bring with you? Okay, so I have this here. I have this ready. This is the case that I will take, 64 HP, 1 row, 3U, right? Basically just 1 row, 64 HP. First of all, Arbor, because it has a built-in mic and I can record my surroundings. Desert island, for sure, there are lots of things to explore there. No airplane noises and stuff like this, I hope. So anyway, it has a built-in mic that I can record everything and process it and with Arbor. And I can use this also to record onto Morphagene, of course, process stuff and explore the sounds really with Morphogene, and also Microcell, again using the mic from Arbor to record onto the different modules, to record my surroundings. I don't think that I will take any oscillators or anything with me, because after 6 months there is so much you can do, I guess, you know, with one sound source. In this case I have unlimited sound sources, because everywhere around me I can use rocks, I can use the waves, I can use the wind, I can use the birds, coconuts, whatever there is on the desert island I can use as a sound source and explore it. Oct for modulation, right? But also using my hands for all sorts of things. The only thing I had an issue with or a problem with is the mixing. So I have the ST mix, which is great. It's also enough channels, right? You have here either mono or stereo. So you have 1, 2, and 3, let's say, right? Or if you have another one, you have 2 more channels here. But it has left and right outputs, so no output for headphones, which is a problem. I don't have an output module with headphones, so this I'm not so sure what to do. Maybe you are allowing me to take also speakers with me, although I prefer headphones. So maybe there's like a special cable I can use for the headphones, but never mind, this is the only issue. But other than this, this is more or less the case. Again, exploring the sounds around me, recording them using Arbor, to the different modules and just exploring things. Yes, so this is it. Cool question. All right. Declan Helpin, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Omri, thank you so much for your videos. Thank you for watching them and for your support, of course. I constantly have issues with VCV sequencers not starting with my DAW. I've searched the forum and it seems to be a common issue. If the VCV sequencer is stopped while hot, it will not receive the next start signal properly. Do you have any secrets for keeping DAW and VCV in sync after multiple start stops? So I gave it a try yesterday. I set for like an hour with all sorts of different sequencers and I used Bitwig and I just couldn't find any issue. I didn't encounter any issue with the sequencers not starting. I tried all sorts of different sequencers, but they all started all right. I mean, they all worked as they should. So maybe there is something different in my setup than in yours. But there is something you can try. There are 2 modules from RCM. There's the SEC adapter and the sync, right? Again, RCM, this is available for free. And they should help with everything that has to do with syncing sequencers and stuff like this. Right, so if you have any issues with syncing, also without DAW, sometimes in VCV, sequencers will not start the same. Some will start on step 1, some will start on step 2, some will start on the last step. Sorry, those modules, the sync and the SEC adapter from RCM, sorry, too much T, from RCM should, RCM should help you with everything that has to do with syncing. Again, I tried it yesterday. I didn't encounter any issue in my everyday patching and stuff. I don't use VCV as a VST. I use either VCV alone, either Bitwig alone, or either my modular with Bitwig. So I didn't encounter, I tried yesterday to break things. Nothing happened. Everything worked as it should. But those 2 modules, again, RCM, maybe I will also put a link in the description. RCM should help you with everything that has to do with syncing. Again, I'm sorry if this was not so helpful, but I couldn't find anything. Maybe if you give me send me the patch, email me the patch that you have issues with, and I will try to reproduce the issue and see if there is a way I can fix it, or try to fix it at least. All right, another question. Nick, hey Omri, hi. One of my recent obsessions in modular is trying to get. Okay, let's bring in. Sorry, Nick, just a second. Let's bring in now a bit of the. Right. Just a bit to have some background music. I bring in the microcosm. Sorry, you cannot see it. Maybe I can do this for a second, right? Just brought in the loop a bit and this granular mode. just to have some background music. All right, Nick, hi. One of my recent obsessions in modular, just now, okay, that was too early to activate the microcosm, is trying to get musical results out of very utilitarian circuits that wouldn't usually be considered especially musical, like comparators, logic, digital to analog and analog to digital converters, binary counters, etc. What are some of your favorite techniques along these lines? Bonus points if you have any idea what's going on with the Luneta modules collection by Count Modular. Sorry, this was too early with the microcosm. I'll take it out. Because again, I have something prepared. Again, a few examples with utilities. And the Luneta modules, also a few of the Luneta modules, not all of them, but just a few of them, as you can see. Again, this will be available as a selection. You load a selection from the file menu here, import selection, available on Patreon if you are interested. Okay, so what do I have here? I will go through some of the things. I will put also links in the description, utilities, to all sorts of videos I did about using comparators, using logic, maybe shift registers. I also have something, right? Using them as a more of musical content, flip-flop, stuff like this that we will see in a second. Okay, so what we have here, we have, for example, the buttons, manual logic buttons from the Luneta collection, right? Basically, you have here a button. Now you have two modes. You have toggle, I guess, and latched, right? Toggle means that when you click it and as long as you hold it, there will come a gate out of the output, but you have to keep on holding, right? Or in the right-click menu, you can change this to be latched, or momentary. Okay, you can change it to latched, right? Which means that you click it. Now I don't hold anything, and you can see there is a gate coming out, and when you click it again, the gate will go down. Gate, basically, most of the Luneta modules will work with binary signals. Binary meaning either low or high, 0 or 1, basically gates, pulse waves, square waves, and so on, right? There is nothing in between. There is either on or off, either 1 or 0. Right, so you get here, when I click it once, I get a gate. When I click it again, the gate goes down. Right, now here I have another one. I have here quad clocked delatch. Basically, a latch is a flip-flop, right? This is a sort of a flip-flop. Right, everything in life, I said it once, there was something I said about flip-flops, that's funny. Life is nothing but a flip-flop or something like this, never mind. Anyway, flip-flop, again, you trigger it once, right? Usually we'll have two outputs. You trigger it once, a gate will come out of one output, the gate goes down, right? The gate will come out of a second output. You can see it's Q1 and right, and another Q1 with this stripe above. Right, you see basically it will change. Now this is a clocked one, which means that you have a clock input, which means that all of the changes you make will be synced with the clock, right? Which is great if this is what you want. You want to trigger things synced with the clock, you can use this module. In this case, what I'm using another module. I know this is a bit confusing, but again, this selection is available for you to download, so you can have a closer look. I'm just going through this quickly. This is a whole subject for a few videos. Right, so here I have another one. I have AND gate. Now, AND gate is more familiar, I guess. When one and the other signals are high, again, we are dealing here with binary signals with basically gates on and or off. When one and the other, only when both of them are high, we will get a gate coming out of the output, right? So I have one side going to one of those AND logic, another side going to the second AND logic, right? So I have two pairs, right? It's a quad. There are 4 pairs here. I'm using 2 pairs. And the second signal that should be high is the clock, right? And this is driving 2 different sequences. You see, one is driving one sequence with 7 steps. The other one is driving a second sequence with 5 steps, which means that by clicking this button here, I can switch between the steps, between the sequences, sorry. And it will all be quantized to the clock, right? So you can see now it's the upper sequence Now it's the low sequence. Of course, you don't have to use a gate or a button, sorry, you can use a sequencer to do this. Right, so the voices it will switch will be two FM operators. I have to connect this also to the output, of course, going through some reverb. Opalach. Right, and now I can switch with this button. And it will be synced with the clock. Right? So this is just one example. You can switch between sequencers, you can switch between effects, you can switch between voices, you can switch between all sorts of things. Let me just see that we are still recording, that I'm not doing this. Yes, all right, cool. Right. So you can switch between different stuff with this setup here, for example. Again, you don't have to use buttons. You can use a sequencer or random gates or stuff like this. Right, another example I have here is with the shift register. So again, in this case of the Luneta modules, we are dealing mostly with binary signals, right? Either on or off. We will see this also later with the analog to digital converter. Right, basically on or off. So what I have here a clock which will tell the shift register when to shift between the outputs. A shift register will basically shift the signal coming in this case, the data input. It will shift it through its outputs, right? Yes, the data here is basically sample and hold. Now, again, the output will be gates, will be a binary signal, which means that whenever this sample and hold goes above a certain level, again, this is random going up and down. Let's look at this at the scope maybe. Right? We have a signal going up and down. Whenever it crosses, I believe it's 1 volt. I think in VCV it's always 1 volt. Maybe it's a different value. But whenever it crosses this 1 volt, it will be considered as an open gate, which means that when it's considered as an open gate, you will see the gate will just be shifted through the outputs 1, then 2, then 3, and then 4. So like this, you can create sort of strumming, for example. Right, here I have 3 oscillators, 3 FM operators, and they will be triggered or gated one after the other in a sort of a strumming way, right? And this is going through some delay just for fun. Again, this will happen randomly because I'm using sample and hold as the input for the data. Again, the output will not be the sample and hold. It will be either a high gate or a low gate, binary signals, either ones or 0, right? Either on or off, right? But at least still you can use this to sequence sequences, to sequence voices in all sorts of different ways, and you have 2 of them here, right? Right, so this is another interesting module. Another one is the hex inverter, for example, right, which will invert the input. Again, we are dealing with binary signals, with gates, right? So whenever the input gate is high, the output gate will be low, and whenever the input gate is low, when it's closed, basically when it's 0 volt, the output will be 10 volts, right? Or 5 volts, I'm not so sure. I think it's 10 volts in this case, right? So like this, you can create, for example, a kick and a hi-hat, right? A hi-hat on the offbeat. So you have kick, hi-hat, high, 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 high. This was not such a good explanation, but you know what I mean. And here you can see we have 2 FM operators, pitch tuned differently, right? So you get like the offbeat, ta 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 ta. Again, you can use this to split a gate to 2 different modules, right? You can use this to split a gate to 2 different sequencers, right? For example, I need another schluck. Right. So you can do this, for example, with the hex inverter. I'm sure there are many other uses for this. This is just, again, a short example how you can approach exploring these modules. Here we have the analog to digital converter. Now, of course, nothing here is analog in the sense that it's analog like in real life, because it's digital. Basically, it's in software, it's VCVREC, everything there is digital, right? There are no analog signals, but analog in the sense that it's a continuous signal. It's not 0 and 1, right? Like a binary signal, like a digital signal. Digital means basically you have 0 and 1, right? And here we have a continuous signal, like an LFO. We have here a complex LFO, as you can see here on the scope, coming from the hypermaniacal LFO from Count Modular, right? So it's an analog signal in the sense that it's continuous, right? It's not up or down, it's not on or off. It has many values also in between. Now you take this analog signal and you turn it into a digital signal, a signal that is either on or off, and you can extract rhythms, you can extract gates, for example, from a complex waveform like I'm doing here. You can see the blue trace is the gates, the green trace is the analog signal, the LFO. So I have here this LFO modulating the cutoff point of a filter and the gates triggering an FM operator. So I get a rhythm from this complex modulation. Right? This is great for all sorts of generative patches, for example, when you want to extract gates from a complex random modulation or random signals or stuff like this. Right, so again, you convert continuous signals into binary signals that are either on or off. And you can also do this at audio rates. Right, and convert like a sine wave to a square wave, for example, right? So this you can also do. Another example is the counter divider. Basically, a clock divider, when you use a clock divider, you get just the division, right? If you divide a clock by 16, you will get just this division. But here you have, what is it? You have 10 outputs, right? And you have an output for each of the division, basically. Opalach, sorry, again, too much tea. Right, so I don't have to use just this output here that is basically delayed, right? The clock division is basically a delay of the clock. Maybe not, more or less. But here it's more or less like this, right? So I'm basically dividing it and I have access to all of the outputs in between also, right? So also here you can use this as a sort of a sequencer to sequence, in this case, again, 3 voices. Right. I think with the inhabit also you can like interfere with the clock. So if I use a manual gate, right, I can now sort of freeze the clock, right, which is also perfect if you do this randomly for generative patches, for example, or with the sequencer for more rhythmic results. Another interesting output this module has is this, how is it called? The carry output. Is it carry? Why is it CO then? Carry output, all right. The carry output, which will basically output a gate with every other cycle as far as I see it here. Right, so you have one cycle with a gate and then another cycle without a gate, right? You can see it here. Which means that basically you can use this to gate sequences, to gate voices, right? To trigger sequential switches, stuff like this. Right, you can do all sorts of things with this output. And another module that I really, really like, and I have also in hardware, I have one new comparator from Ritual Electronics called Repression. I'm pretty sure I nailed this. I nailed it with the pronunciation here, Repression, right? Comparator, one new comparator. I love comparators. You can do so many things with a comparator. I have a video all about it. I will put it in the description. Basically, what I'm doing here, right? A comparator will basically, let me show you this on the scope also. Right, you have like a signal Can I show this on the scope? I think so, yeah. You have a signal and you have a threshold. Whenever the signal goes above the threshold, in this case it's 1 volt, there will come a gate out of the over output. Whenever it goes and stays below 1 volt, it will come out of the under. Of course, the threshold can be anything between -10 and +10. In this case, I will leave it at 1, which is 1 octave, if you think about it. Right, so whenever it goes above 1 volt, there will be, let me change this. There will be a gate, right, out of the over output. And in this case, I'm using something I like doing is using a comparator to split a sequence, right? I'm sending the pitch sequence to the comparator. And when it goes above 1 volt, above 1 octave, it's triggering one voice. Every time it's below, as long as it's below, it's triggering a different voice. I have here one with a delay, one without a delay. Right. Right, so basically you get, you can split a sequence like this more or less to 2 different voices. So basically comparators can also be really musical. Again, I will put links in the description to different videos that I made. Don't be afraid of utilities. You just have to, I don't know how to approach them actually. Just have to think about them as what they are. They are, most of the time, the Luneta modules will be gates. Think about how you can use gates. Stuff like this. I'm sure you can build more complex things with combining different modules. I am not really into this stuff. I'm still not at this level, but there are still fun things, as you've seen, fun things to explore with such modules. Again, also this will be available as a as a selection that you can download. Right, you can download and use. Okay, so this was another question. Let's move on to the next one. And now again, I will bring in the lovely microcosm here. Right, have another look. All right, Nick, I hope this was helpful. Let's move on to the next question. As I said, there are many questions this time, a long video. Chris, hi Chris. Hello Omri, how do you sort and keep track of all your project audio files and ideas between VCV and the DAW? Do you pack every file in a compressed file, or do you, for example, use a library share with exported selections categorized in Ableton? You can pack everything and save it all together. Is there a way in VCV that you can do the same when samples are included, or just save in one folder and compress it? Any practical tips are very welcome. Thank you, Chris. Cheers, Chris. So it's like this. VCV will not do this for you. As far as I know, you cannot save as, and it will copy everything into one folder. I always keep things in one folder, dedicated folder. And for example, this video, I have a folder just for this video, for the video recording, for the audio recording, for the pictures, for the samples I'm using, for the selections I'm using, just for this video. Everything is in one folder and in subfolders, like the questions are in the questions folder, the video is in the video folder, the audio is in the audio folder, and so on. And I always put it in one folder. I don't compress things, which maybe I should, because then it will take less space, but I don't do this. I just leave the folders as they are. Everything is in one folder. Even when I compose, when I record something and I use samples, I have a dedicated folder for samples, but I'm taking the sample I'm using from there into the project folder, always. So there is no chance that in the future one file will not be found. Always, the project always is in a dedicated folder with all the different files in subfolders that you can always move also, right? If you copy it to a different computer, if you change your computer, if you go to a friend, you have everything in only one folder that you can always find and use, especially with samples. I really recommend this. If you have samples, a dedicated folder for samples on your computer. If you use any sample from there, copy it to the project folder, always. Because then there is no chance that in the future, if something is deleted, if you moved, let's say all of a sudden you change the folder for the dedicated samples, you just renamed it, for example, and you open the project, the file will not be found. You have to search for it, blah, 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 blah. If you have the samples in a dedicated folder in your project folder, everything will work as it should. Yes, so again, I have this always in the same folder. The patch is in the same folder. The DAW project is in the same folder. The samples, the pictures, the video, whatever, everything is in one folder, main folder, and then in subfolders inside. VCV will not do this for you, unfortunately, but this is just how things work. Right, so again, everything in one folder. This is super important. Also samples or everything else you are using, basically just put it there. If you have presets that you are using, like custom presets or stuff like this, just put them in the folder just in case, right? This is the best practice, I guess. Yeah. Dirk, hi there. I would like to use my ES9. You know what? Maybe before I can pitch this down, maybe I can show you maybe I can pitch the loop down, so it will play slower also. Okay, hi there. I would like to use my ES9 as a hardware mixer, like any hardware mixer for my DAW. Can you show us how to do this? I guess a fader bank or some sort would be necessary and some configuration as well. Thanks, yours truly, Dirk. Thank you, Dirk. Unfortunately, I cannot help you with this. I have the ES9 for like 2-3 years maybe. I don't remember. I configured it once and that's it. I never updated it. I never touched the configurator again. I don't want to. It was not a fun thing to do, to configure it. I didn't update it, so I cannot do this with my ES9. I'm not so sure if you can do this with the USB or you will need the Midi expansion. For the ES9, there is not a lot of information about it online, which is a shame. It's such an expensive module. There is nothing like it anywhere else, but there is not so much documentation. I would expect more videos from expert sleepers about how to configure it, how to use it and stuff like this. There is not really anything to find, which is really a shame, and I wish there was more. I found something in a forum somewhere on ModWiggler, but again, it's not really full. Nothing is really that I can tell you how to do this. I'm sorry again, but I'm not going to update my ES9 for now. I hope never again. I don't want to go through this configuration thing again. I configured it once and that's it. I made a video about it and that's it. I don't want to touch it again. It was not painful, but it was not such a nice experience, I guess. Yes, if you can do this with the USB, so you just connect your controller to the computer and then control it, I'm pretty sure it will be only for the first 8 inputs, like in standalone mode. So you can use it just in standalone, of course, like any other hardware mixer, just the first 8 inputs. Standalone means that you don't need a computer for this to work. I'm not so sure. Again, there is not so much information about this online, which is a shame. Expert sleepers, please make more. I'm sure you're not watching this, but never mind. If someone knows expert sleepers, maybe they can ask. Please make more videos about the ES9, about configuring it, about using it. It's so expensive and it's the only thing out there, so please do this. If you need a fader bank, basically I'm sure you can use any MIDI controller, so this will come up in the next question as well, if I remember correctly. But something I recommend is the Korg Nano Control 2. I'm not sponsored, I bought this with my own money. Maybe I should ask them for a sponsorship after this video. Yes, but I used it for a long time. This will come up in the next question also. It has faders, right? They feel okay. It's not a perfect controller, of course, but it has 8 faders. Again, I'm pretty sure you can use only the first 8 inputs. Right, so you have 8 faders and you have a knob also for each one that you can use for panning. So you have volume and panning. I think the best will be to just get a hardware mixer instead of using the ES9. I'm sure it will be much easier with less configuration needs. But if you want, you can use this, for example. Again, there is not so much information online. I'm sorry, I cannot help you, but I refuse to update my ES9. I'm not going to do this as long as I don't need to, just in case that I will have to configure it again. No way. I'm sorry, Dirk, but that's just the way it is. I hope you will find something. If you do find more information, let me know. And I hope Expert Sleepers will finally, after a few years, will make more videos about the ES9. I don't think there is even one video from them about the configurator, which is a shame. Okay, the next question. I'm sorry, Dirk, again, sorry. Damien, hi. And this is the question about the MIDI controller. Since Jacob from MIDI controller stopped producing them, what are the alternative and the pros and cons of them? Cheers, Damien. Cheers. I'm sorry, it stopped working. It was... I have a feeling that it was reaching the point where it was just amazing. You know, it was just an amazing MIDI controller, and then it stopped. As far as I know, it stopped because of positive reasons, because he had to dedicate more time for music, which is always good. But nevertheless, he still is not making them anymore. I have one here that I hope I can show you this, right? You see many faders, they feel great, knobs, buttons, switches even. Here there's a switch. Right, so basically it was such a good controller. You could configure it. It looks modular. It's great for VCV, Reactor, stuff like this, Ableton, Bitwig. And it's a shame. It's a shame that it stopped, but it's again because of good reasons. Anyway, other controllers. Again, I'm going back to the Korg. I'm not sponsored. I bought this years ago with my own money. At full price. I'm not anyway connected with Korg. Maybe I should write them to sponsor a video about this MIDI controller. It's small, it's light, it's really affordable. I think it's like $50 or $60. You can even have 2 of them. Again, 8 channels. The faders are short, but they feel okay. I mean, it doesn't feel so cheap like its price. It's not perfect, but it's okay. There are knobs, 8 knobs. Buttons here that can either be momentary or latch, right? Again, either you click and hold, or you click and then click again to close them, which is great. Many buttons, again, faders, knobs, which is amazing for VCV. Again, it's small, you can take it with you on the road. And yes, it's really an interesting and fun and affordable controller for VCV. Again, you can have even 2 of them. One thing I will mention, I'm on Windows and I had quite a few issues installing the drivers for it. And by looking at the forums, I understood that I'm not the only one. There are many people on Windows that suffer from Korg, I guess, from the software of Korg. I'm not so sure why, but there are some issues there. I don't remember how, but somehow I managed to make it work. And I enjoyed it very much. Again, it's small, it goes everywhere. It's light, it's affordable. So yes, I recommend this one. If you need more than 8, you can get 2, I guess. Because again, it's really affordable. Yes, so this is what I will recommend. Again, it's not modular like the MIDI-lar. The MIDI-lar looks modular. It's basically MIDI modules. This looks more like faders and knobs. There is not so much space here also for tags, so you can exactly write what is what. I did it here somewhere once, but yeah, it didn't work so well. So you will have to remember, you know, it's more difficult to remember what is what than the MIDI-lar, but again, the MIDI-lar is not available anymore, unfortunately. Yes, but the Korg Nano Control 2. Maybe I will put an affiliate link. You know what? Maybe this can be interesting. Nano. I will put an affiliate link in the description if you want. Because of my video, because of this video, you decide to buy it, I will put an affiliate link at Thomann or something like this. where you can order it, and then it will not cost you anything else, but maybe I will get something from it. I'm not so sure. I never done stuff like this so much. I have something in the description, but I never checked it. So maybe I have so much money there in Toman and I don't even know. Never mind. All right, so this is the controller. Next question, Christopher. Hi, Christopher. I'm a total beginner and really enjoy and learn a lot from your videos. Thank you, that's great. But when I sit down and try patching from scratch, I get lost and find it difficult to make things happen. Any advice on how to get through this roadblock? Man, this is a tough one. I have 2 tips for you. The first one, split your time. The second one is concentrate on simple things. So first one, split your time. This is something really important. Really important. It's not really important. There are other more important things in this world that we see every day. But it's not really important, but something that can really help you. Split your time between practicing and building patches or composing. Call it as you will. I call it composing. Sit down, dedicate time just for messing around, just for learning things, just for experimenting, and just for practicing. It's an instrument like any other instrument that you have to practice. So dedicate time just for this without, and this is important, without the pressure of building patches. Don't try to build a patch. Don't try to make a whole composition. Don't try to finish something. Just sit down and practice and experiment. Dedicate time just for this, and then dedicate time just for sitting down and composing and building patches from scratch and seeing where it will take you. When you practice, it goes in your head and you free space in your head, sort of in your mind, so you don't have to think about stuff anymore so much, and you can concentrate on patching a patch from scratch. You will have to practice in order to get there. Right, so dedicate time for practicing. Now, when you do practice, try concentrating on small ideas, on small techniques. For example, now try an experiment. Sit down for a whole day if you have a whole day. If not, if you have an hour, sit down for an hour and experiment with subtractive synthesis. Experiment with VCAs. Experiment with delays. Sit down and concentrate just on one aspect without the pressure. And again, this is important, without the pressure. I'm screaming here, I'm so excited. Without the pressure of completing a patch, right? Of finishing the patch, or finishing the song, or finishing the composition. Don't do this to yourself, because it's not so rewarding, right? Sit down, and from the beginning, when you sit down, think to yourself, okay, I'm not here to compose, I'm not here to build a patch, I'm here to practice, and I'm here to have fun and to learn the instrument that I'm enjoying so much. Concentrate on one aspect, on one module, on one synthesis technique, on one idea. Right, if you watch one of my videos, usually there are many ideas there. Concentrate. I'm saying it like, never mind, I try to have many ideas, right? I don't want to sound vain or anything. Concentrate on just one idea. If you watch a video, for example, about sample and hold, I have a video about sample and hold. Take one idea for this sample and hold and experiment with it, see where you can take it. And then later on, when you sit down and you compose something from scratch and you build a patch from scratch, you will have more space in your head, in your mind, to concentrate on patching, right? Rather to concentrate on what's going on here and what am I doing and I'm stuck and I don't know what to do, right? So again, dedicate time for practicing, and when you practice, concentrate on small ideas, on small aspects, on one module, 2 modules, and so on. Without the pressure, again, important, without the pressure of feeling like you have to complete a whole patch. This is important, and I wish I would do this also more. Practicing is something that I feel like I'm not doing enough. All right, thank you, Christopher. The next question, Golden Pyramid, and that's the last question actually. Golden Pyramid. Let's see, just for fun, how. Wow, more than an hour long. All right, cool. This is not what I wanted. This is what I wanted. Golden Pyramid. I think there are 2 questions here, so I will divide this into 2. Hello, Omri. Hi. Another controller question. In V1, VCV1, we had the Iverson module that was designed to work with the APC Mini, indeed, from Studio 6+1. Are there other trigger sequencers that you know of that could be mapped to that type of controller that are easy to map? Unfortunately, no. unfortunately, I don't know of any module like this. If I remember correctly, there was a module from Stormelder that had also feedback. I don't have Stormelder installed. It's not in the library. You can download it and install it. I don't have it installed. But there is a module from Stormelder that you could use to map with feedback. So the MIDI controller basically you will see what's going on the MIDI controller, which is great. I don't know of any sequencer that you can use like this. Maybe the gate sequencer, for example, from Count Modular you can use, right? It has gates, it has mute, but you will have to go one by one. But you can save this as a preset, of course. But the Iverson was so cool, it was so easy to use. I wish Studio 6+1 will come back to VCV2. I'm pretty sure it will not happen as far as I understood from the developer, unfortunately, but maybe another developer wants to adopt this collection. If I have no idea when it comes to coding and stuff, so I cannot do this, but maybe someone one day will bring it back. There are interesting modules there. Yes, so maybe in the future, but you will have to do this manually with a different sequencer, I guess, just like the gate sequencer, for example, from Count Modular. All right, a follow-up question I asked once about recipes. In your videos, I can see that you always know the right ingredients you want to add depending on the style. I was watching an interview, for a second I have something to say. It looks like maybe I know what I'm doing. I don't really know what I'm doing. I was watching an interview with a surgeon, and he mentions his minimal approach: 1 or 2 synth voices, samples, and a couple of drums. How do you know when it is enough, and how to keep it groovy and exciting? Abstract question, indeed abstract, but I'm curious about your perspective. Thank you for your support. So first of all, I don't think, maybe maybe I don't know, but I don't really think that the 2 synthesizers, samples, and drums is so minimal. I'm not so sure if it's so minimal, but maybe in our time now with all sorts of DAWs and stuff, maybe it's considered minimal, but never mind. So first of all, I know I was joking before, but I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just going with the flow, listening to the sounds. I cannot explain it. I don't think it's magic, but I cannot put my finger on it and say this is what it is. I think it just comes from the fact that I just use VCVRAC a lot, and I use it for what, 2022. That's almost 5 years now. I'm using VCVRAC, and a lot also, almost on a daily basis. Yeah. So it comes from this. I don't really know what I'm doing. It's not like I say, okay, now this I have to do this and this and this. Just I go with the flow, and it's sort of like a Sudoku. Modular, it's like a Sudoku, right? You get like something and you solve it, and you get another. I don't want to say problem because it's not really a problem, but you get, you're solving things all the time. I need another schluck. Right. So how do you know when is enough? You never know when is enough. You cannot know. You cannot know when enough is enough. I think something also when the track is finished. Track is finished when you release it and someone listens to it, then it's finished. Nothing is ever enough and nothing is finished. You can always add more. I feel like I always add too much, especially when I build patches from scratch. I always add too much. That's how I feel. I don't know, more layers and more modules and more noises, and I always feel like it's a bit too much. Maybe from the outside it doesn't look like it apparently, but this is how I feel. I never know when is enough. Enough is just when you decide it's enough. Things happen because they happen, and nothing else happens, right? Just like in real life. Sometimes something happens just because it happened and something else didn't happen, right? So when you say it's enough, then it's enough, I guess. I think the best, like I said before to the previous question, I think limiting yourself, especially when it comes to time limitation is your best friend. You tell yourself today is the day, never mind what, I finish this one, or I not finish it, but today it's considered finished, right? Enough is enough. and I'm not working on it anymore. I enjoy learning by doing, which means that the more I do, the more I learn. So if I sit down a week and think about stuff or plan stuff in my head, nothing will happen as long as I don't sit down and I do it. And I keep moving forward. I finish a patch because that's it, enough. I worked on it. I don't want to work on it anymore. I want to move on to the next patch. I take what I learned from this patch and I move forward to the next patch without thinking too much. I think that, overthinking stuff is a disease, sort of. Just move, just learn from things that you've done. I don't know. This is what works for me, at least. Nothing will be perfect, never. There is nothing perfect, and good so also. Yes, so I think this is more or less it. How to keep it groovy and exciting? I'm not so sure. I think it should excite you. I think the best will be to, and this is something that I'm opening up here a bit, but something that I still don't think I achieved. To be 100% or not 100%, but to be fully true to the music, fully with intent, to do something with intent. And I think the more you are honest, the more the music is honest, the more people will be attracted to it. The more fake it is, the more you are trying to please other people, the more people will move away from it. That's at least what I think. I feel it on my own skin, let's say, with my own flesh. I always try to be honest, and I'm sorry that I'm saying it. I don't feel that I ever succeed. But this is something I'm working on, and I think that, keep it groovy and exciting. What keeps you, think about what you like and do it. I think this is the best approach. Not trying to please other people, but try to please yourself, I guess. And be true to yourself, and don't stop, don't quit. I think this was a different question that I answered now. Got a bit dramatic there, but never mind. Yes, so anyway, it's never enough. I never know when enough is enough. When it's enough, then it's enough. There's no answer for this. I don't know when things is enough. Sometimes I got a question in an interview that I did, when when the track is finished. It's never finished. I never know. It's finished when I release it and someone listens to it. Then it's finished. That's it. All right. So I think that was the last question. Opalach. Thank you again, Patreon, so much for your support. Let me bring in this microcosm here. Thank you so much for your support. I hope this was a bit helpful. It was a long video. Again, if you're a Patreon, come join us on Discord. If you are not a Patreon, come join us on Patreon. It's fun. It's fun. Great community, lovely people. Yes. And that's it. Thank you. Cheers.